Is men's open still your favorite division?
Because of Arnold, I think that created a different trajectory for bodybuilding.
Do you hire a coach just for the prep?
I'm hurt, and I need to work on some things on myself.
How do you deal with stress like that?
Help people get through those similar situations.
When you were on a Flex Lewis podcast, you said that in 2022, before starting your business, your life was in chaos. And I was so surprised hearing it because following you on social media, you always seemed like a happy, very calm guy. So you say your life was in chaos. I was like, what do you mean? Like what? I was so surprised hearing it coming from you. What happened in 2022? Why were you?
It was, the year post divorce, like a lot of things, and it changed for the world. Business was definitely completely derailed. There's things in the business world that was struggling. I'm as a promoter of my own show as well. Shows were way down. Having another business in the apparel world, I had an actual physical location, a store in a mall. The mall was dead. Like there was a lot of those stresses going on in business, and then there was relational stresses as well going on. That were a lot of differences in a lot of butting heads, and when the world's crazy and the home's crazy, like that's chaos. That's a very stressful environment, and that's more or less what I was referring to. And it just got to a point where it was time to have some things change in life, and so yeah. That's what I meant by the chaos, the crazy.
How do you deal with stress like that? What do you do? You meditate? Like how do you know what I mean?
I could absorb a lot of stress, and I think my years being a firefighter, being a paramedic, that allowed me to handle and manage stress, like understand that stresses are going to happen. And
Sure.
like sometimes I perform better under stress because I'm like, all right, I know I can do this. Like my back's against the wall. Like, let's go. I got this. But at the same time, like you eventually have a breaking point, and you eventually are going to have to. That's where I really leaned on people in my life, friends, people that I know are like coaches, therapists. I would call them. I would worked on myself. I'm a very outward person, but I had to turn it inward and say, you know what? There's things about me I need to correct and change, and I need to address. I can't just keep putting it down and say, hey, it'll fix itself. Like eventually those things come rearing to the surface. And I was very, conscious of saying, of not saying my ego and I could, the big tough guy, no problem. Like, I'm like, man, I'm hurt, and I need to work on some things on myself, and some things I don't like about myself that I want to change, or, a lot of those I addressed, and just being real honest with myself for sure.
Mm. No, I'm glad to see that you overcame that situation.
No, it's not easy, and you got to leave ego at the door. And I understand, like, I think when you go through situations in life, you can relate and help people get through those similar situations. When you're feeling hopeless, when you're feeling like, it was a very kind of hopeless feeling sometimes. And then, like, you get into these dark places where you start thinking crazy things, and those thoughts just start, multiplying in your head.
Mhm.
And to work through that. So when somebody says, hey, I'm in a dark spot, or I didn't want to live anymore, you hear that thing, like, you understand that being in a dark place, being in those situations, so you could say, hey man, like, I'm here for you. Like, you got people that are behind you. Like, you're not on this, the devil to me wants to isolate you, and that's what COVID did. It isolated people. So when you're isolated, you're going to have these thoughts, and you're going to start thinking of things that may not even be reality, and the more likely they're not. I always say, anxiety comes from thinking about tomorrow, that and stuff that could happen, and then most of the time it doesn't happen. And then depression is thinking about what happened in the past, and listen, that's the past. You got to leave it. So being more present in today and focusing on today instead of worrying about what's going on tomorrow has been one thing that's really helped.
100%, man. I agree with you. Are you still excited about watching bodybuilding as a fan? Do you still enjoy watching bodybuilding shows?
I do. I really do. Like, they just had the Texas Pro show. There's, a lot of the shows that are guys that are, working to try to hit the Olympia stage. And I'm a huge fan of bodybuilding on top of being, heavily involved in the sport, being a pro and all that. But I definitely like seeing, where's the sport going? How are guys looking? And the evolution. Like it constantly evolves. Like the look, the condition, the size. What guys are. There's some freak bodybuilders right now in the sport and that look phenomenal. And there's guys that are trying to push things too far, and you see their body change, and you're like, man, you went too far with it. So like that's where sometimes a good coach will tell somebody, hey, we gotta maintain what we have, but just make it better, not try to create something that's unrealistic.
Hmm. Is men's open still your favorite division to watch, or do you like other divisions?
It's the freak show. It's to me like what the sport has been built on. I mean, Mr. Olympia was really around the men's bodybuilding, and I mean the guys that are competing in physique and classic. I mean, they look amazing, but they train. I mean, if they could, they would be a bodybuilder, but that's their genetic potential is to stay within that realm. Like what their genetics hold.
Do you have a top five? Do you have a top five who you consider to be the top five bodybuilders of all time?
All time?
Of all time, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. I would say I mean, a lot of guys now look really good. If I was to go like previous my generation, I'd say like Jay Cutler's always been a favorite of mine. I mean, overall, the physique, human he is, like the businessman. He is epitome of a Mr. Olympia. Ronnie Coleman, he's one of the goats. I don't think we'll ever see a Ronnie Coleman physique. It's insane. Um, you got guys like I've always was a fan of Kevin LeBron. I thought his physique was awesome. Dorian was incredible, and I think as a pioneer, Arnold was a great Mr. Olympia. I mean, because of Arnold, I think that created a different trajectory for bodybuilding for sure.
That's a good top five, man. Uh, Very nice, very nice. By the way, speaking of Phil Heath, right, and Ronnie Coleman, both very dominant bodybuilders. Do you think Phil Heath would be able to stand against Ronnie Coleman and give him a competition? Both in their primes, let's say.
Both in prime.
It's a hypothetical, obviously.
I think the overall structure of Ronnie would dominate Phil. I think when you look at like Ronnie's width of his shoulders and the overall size, Phil competed in the 40s, 50s, looked bigger than he was. That's the illusion of bodybuilding. Ronnie was 200 and I mean 290, 300 pounds on stage. That created that is just a massive human being. 50 pounds on stage is huge.
It's crazy, man. Uh, Steve, last thing I want to ask you today is what's the advice you would give to a lot of people that watch this program, upcoming bodybuilders, they want to become pros, let's say. What's the some of the advice you would give to the younger generation of bodybuilders today?
I would say be smart with who you follow and whose advice you listen to. Vet coaches. Like, just because somebody puts a transformation picture up, hey, I took this guy here to here, like that's great. But, there's a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of harmful information out there. A lot of guys, people that don't know what they're doing, maybe get one person in shape or get them to compete on stage. And then, again, they may harm three other people that you don't hear about. So I would say be cautious of the information, that you absorb. Follow people that are knowledgeable. There's a lot of great information, a lot of great, I know you guys put out a lot of good information. There's a lot of people like Lane Norton has a lot of great information. I'm just kind of saying some people like
Sure.
that are educated, that understand how the body works, and you have to think about your health first. Just don't think about, hey, I'm gonna live in my mom's basement, kind of the old animal pack ads where it was like the guy sitting in a dungeon eating like egg whites out of a bowl and be like, my wife wants to go to dinner but I can't miss this meal of egg whites, like that kind of thing. Like don't be that guy. Like live your life, be smart, think about long term. Like if you're going to want to make a career out of this, how are you going to make money? Like do you need to have another job that supplements this? Like, be smart about it. Hire a coach, hire somebody that's a mentor that's been down the path that can show you how to do it.
Speaking of a coach, actually, I was just thinking about something. Do you supposed to hire like if you're, let's say, amateur, you want to become a pro, right? Do you hire a coach just for the prep, or you're supposed to hire him for all year round?
I think there's value to year round. If you're very knowledgeable and been kind of lifting and understanding your body and you know how to do things, like maybe you don't need an off season just for pre-contest. I think there's a lot of value in having a coach pre-contest because, the mindset of of somebody like a competitor is like more is better. More is better. I'm going to do more cardio. I'm going to train more. I'm going to cut my food more. But what a coach will do will pull the reins. That's why I've always like had a coach because I would always want to do more. So a coach would be like, no, we don't need to do as much cardio. Keep the food higher, keep your food in. Like don't starve yourself. So having a coach helps you take the mental stress off of thinking about what you have to do if they're good and they learn your body. I think the longer you work with somebody, the more they're going to understand how your body works. So you're going to have more success at ultimately peaking for a show. So having more time to work with a client does benefit the client long term, yes.
Are you supposed to are you supposed to ask a coach how many clients he's training at the time? Because I feel like a lot of coaches, it's a numbers game, right? So they want to get as many as possible. Should people be cautious of the coaches like that? Should they be like only?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to be okay with getting minimal attention.
Right,
For
right,
me,
right.
I don't like to carry a huge client load because I want to give my people attention. I make myself available. I try to create as much value as I can for that client. Yes, it's spread out through my clients, but at the same time, if somebody's got 100, 200, 300 people on the roster, they're probably just literally just cranking, some maybe a little cookie cutter when it comes to
Yeah.
here's a diet, and you're handing out the same diet to everybody. That doesn't always work. For some people, like I always kind of joked around, like somebody like Flex Lewis or Phil Heath, like my mom could probably prep Flex Lewis or Phil Heath because they're amazing genetics and whatever you tell them, their body's going to respond. But at the same time, somebody that's a hard, they don't respond well, they're, the hard gainer or whatever it is, like the person has to be very knowledgeable and may need more attention. So I think that's a fair question to ask somebody. How many clients you have, and what are the deliverables that I'm going to get from you? Are you gonna, okay, we're gonna get on a call once a week, or you're gonna get an update whatever it is. Like have that clearly drawn out, and if you're not getting it, it's time to either address it or move on.
Steve, thank you so much for your time, and I had a really great time talking to you.
No, Vlad, it's been my honor. I appreciate you finally having me on, and I look forward to doing this again.
100%, man. We should do this once a year, man.
Come on, at least once a year. Whenever you need somebody that wants to, you want some good opinions on stuff, let's go.
Have a great day, man.
You too.
Thank you, brother. Take care, man.